I have to say, Doug Ford has pleasantly surprised me. I mean, I voted for him, but I didn't really expect very much, as I've been kind of, I don't want to say blackpilled, not particularly enthusiastic about conservatives in Canada. But after the first week or so, I have to say I'm very pleasantly surprised with the man. And I have to say, if nothing else, what Doug Ford has done in the brief time he's been in power is he's shown himself to be a man of his word. And to me, that is exceedingly important. Aside from whether or not I agree with the policies and whether or not I support the ideology of the person, to me, probably the next most important thing is whether they actually do the things they say they were going to do and they keep their commitments. And to a certain extent, it doesn't really matter whether or not I agree with the policies. It's whether or not that they're honest and they like I said, they keep what they've promised to do. Like, for example, Justin Trudeau, when he was running for prime minister, he said, this is the last election we'll have under a first-past-the-post system. That was a promise he made. He didn't just say, we're gonna look at electoral reform. He said, it's going to be over. It's never going to happen again. And then he kept promising electoral reform. And when the whole thing turned into a disaster and went nowhere, he completely abandoned the process, threw a temper tantrum, and said that we needed to keep first past the post, and people who wanted electoral reform were basically crazy when he had been advocating it. And I lost a lot of respect for him. I mean, I didn't want electoral reform. Single transferable voting or ranked choice balloting would basically mean the Liberals would win every election for the rest of Canadian history. And however much I might complain about the Conservatives, that's definitely not something I want. But I have to say, I lost a lot of respect for the man because he not only did he promise it, he was like stridently saying this is like my top priority, and he just abandoned it in such a lame way. Obama, with his public option, they didn't even really try to pass it. Like Obamacare, part of why it sucked so bad was because he sold out all the people who got him elected to a large extent in favor of the insurance companies. And part of why Obamacare was so bad was it was the worst of both worlds. A public option probably would have worked better, and opening up competition across state lines probably would have also worked better. But instead we got this bizarre chimera of different stuff thrown together that made nobody happy. And I lost a lot of respect for Obama over that. I lost a lot of respect over George Bush when he did all the bailouts. It's to me like you're a man, you have to be a man of your word. You have to live up to your commitments. Or if you're not going to, because I understand things sometimes don't work out. Things often don't work out in life. But you got to be a man about it. You have to say, look, I know I promised all this stuff when I came to power. I looked at the books and I realized that this isn't realistic. The financial situation is a lot worse than I thought. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to deliver on that. And just explain why. And if you do that, like something like if you at least say, this is why I can't do that, this is why I changed my mind, and you apologize, I'm willing, generally speaking, to accept it. I'm willing to be very fair to people, so long as they kind of own up to it and they admit to it. So what does this have to do with Dougie? Why am I impressed with him? Because it's been like a week or so, but he's already started fulfilling the promises he made immediately after taking office. And that means a lot to me. He said, help is on the way. Day one, we're going to come in and we're going to start doing stuff. And he did immediately after taking office. So what's happened so far? What promises has he kept? Well, a core aspect of the campaign, kind of a main promise Dougie made, was that as soon as he came to power, he was going to conduct a line-by-line audit of Ontario's books. They were going to go through, they were going to look at every kind of, all the spending, all the government contracts, etc., try to figure out where they could save money. Some ideas, I think, were centralizing procurement, getting rid of kind of some of the no-bid contracts, maybe outsourcing some things. And that was kind of like, that was going to be priority one. So immediately when he took power, they announced a freeze on the salaries of senior civil servants, which I think was a good idea. And they also announced a hiring freeze on non-essential positions. Now, the non-essential positions Obviously exclude things like police and firemen, but kind of what he was doing is, in my view, taking the adult way of looking at it. And he's like, look, we can't keep spending, we can't increase the money for salaries and the money to hire more people until we know what we're dealing with. We have to, because I think last year the big issue was the deficit wound up being like $10 billion bigger than they said it was going to be. He's like, look, obviously the bookkeeping isn't very good. So until we like figure out what we're dealing with, we have to like just stop. So once again, like, he promised that. He said he was going to control costs. He said he wasn't going to necessarily fire anybody. And so, like, he kept his promise on that. What else did he keep his promise on? So he immediately axed the carbon cap and trade upon becoming premier. I mean, that was a big thing of his thing. I'm going to reduce gas prices. I'm going to reduce hydro rates. So he did that basically the day his government took office. He also stood up to the federal government and said, we're not going to have a carbon tax. And they're getting ready to fight them over that. And he stood up to Justin Trudeau actually on the whole issue of illegal immigration immediately. So I got to say, I'm like, that's like 5 or 6 things he did in his first week in office. So I have to say, like I said, I had a lot of kind of issues with him. I was kind of lukewarm on the whole thing. But like I said, regardless of how you feel about it, I got to give credit where credit's due. At least he's doing what he said he was going to do. And that's more than can be said for the vast majority of politicians. Anyways, guys, just a quick update video, and I'll talk to you again soon.